Hey everyone, you're watching What Ron Plays, and we are going to do a review of Farthest Frontier. I wanted to wait till I got at least 100 hours playing the game before I figured I was qualified to give my opinion on the game, so we're going to give it a shot. We're looking at a city called Buzzsaw that I built because it mows down the raiders. And you haven't seen this city yet. This is one of them that I've been building on my own, making sure I have enough experience to get to that 100 hours gaming, so I feel qualified to give a review. And it's a pretty tight city. I've got double walls all the way around. I've got room for about 950 people, so could squeeze a few more in there if I wanted to. Pretty much got everything up to manners. I think I have one down here, and it's just waiting on glass and a couple food. And then I think I have one more over, actually a couple. Yeah, that one's actually below the 85. That's terrible. Terrible. Then I have one over here that's over the 85, but they're waiting on a couple things. So I've got just about every house in here up to above that 85% threshold, and the city turned out pretty good. Kind of an unfortunate placement of the graveyard at the beginning. I was able to transplant a bunch of blueberries, so if you happen to not know, you can move blueberries. You'll see the move button up here. So I've got a patch down here that everybody just collects in general, and then I've got another patch up here that everybody collects. So good source of food. I'm going to let the game run while we do the review, to kind of keep it from getting a little too stale. But yeah, we'll get going. Keep in mind, I do want to let you know that, the review that I'm going to do is my own opinion. It's, based completely on how I feel about the game. I come from a very heavy Civilization background. I love the Civilization series, pretty much anything by Sid Meier. A big Humankind fan. So this is more coming from that sort of mindset. And with that, we'll get going. One of the things we'll go with the pros to the game first. And again, this is all just my opinion. The biggest pro for me is the graphics, the details. The graphics in this game are absolutely stunning. I've got a pretty beefy machine, so I've got my my card. I think I got everything set to ultra, so I do get all these details. But you'll look, for instance, the front of the trading post. I mean, just putting the food and the banners on the front. The little I guess you can call them graffiti. You've got each individual person walking around. They drive through the walls once in a while, but that's okay. But I mean, even outside the houses, they've got, the rat catcher's got some flowers outside, got a little rat on the sign. I mean, the little creepy noose. I guess you use that to, like, chop their heads off or something. I don't know, but I mean, just the detail in some of these things. This is the Fletcher, you could run up and grab your arrows. I think they did an outstanding job with the graphics. The snow, the way the snow piles up on the bushes. Like I said, I think they just did an outstanding job with the graphics in this game. They can get a little glitchy as far as movement, especially with the carts. They tend to run through buildings like we just saw a minute ago. But other than that, I mean, I personally, I think it's just incredible. From the light inside the windows. I mean, they show like individual, a single shutter, the fence. I mean, you can see the wood's even chipped at the top. I mean, I don't know. I'm very impressed with the graphics on this game myself. Another pro to the game is, I think, the concept of compost collection. I think that's very important. You don't really see that in other games. I think that's a unique concept. I don't like the distribution of the compost, having to constantly go back and check your compost, your yards, make sure that they're not full. And if they're full, you have to apply it to one of your fields. To me, that's a big pain, but toward the end of this video, I'm going to give you a lot of information about what's coming out for version 8.2 and 8.3 and in the future. So this problem may be resolved. But for now, in version 8.1, which is the version that we're using right now and that we're looking at, and is the only version available at this time of March, you still have to go and check each one. And what makes it a pain is, you know, you've usually got your fields and your compost collectors, since they can't be near town because people don't want them nearby. You've got them spread all over, so you got to kind of keep going around the perimeter, you know, all the way around the outside to check all these compost heaps and compost yards and make sure that they're not full up. So, hey, look, that one large house I showed earlier is finally becoming a manor. Excellent. So, I guess a couple more max population, I believe. But okay, back. Don't want to get too distracted. Back to the review. Another pro, I think, is the arborists. I think the arborists are a great feature. I like them. Very easy to plant, very easy to find spaces. You know, and you don't have to get too much into the fertility of things. As long as you got some decent ground, you can put those arborists in. It is pretty interesting because they will plant themselves. I believe this one probably just ran out of plants, or ran out of trees. Yeah, all the lifespan's out. But I'm not going to mess with that at the moment because we're doing a review. But you can very easily put these in. You don't have to find seeds for them. In other games, you have to find seeds before you can plant certain crops or grow certain trees. Here you don't, so it's a very good source of food for your town, your city, and you know, then you have things like your preservists that can take all those items and they can bottle them as long as you have enough glass and wood. So that's one of your production things you can do to store food and keep it from spoiling. So really like the arborist. Another thing is the trading system. I do like the trading system. It's interesting because you have different traders, you know, that come in. They're buying certain things or selling certain things. Some are selling them or buying them for a good price, some a bad price. You have the ability to move items over from your inventory to have them available when those individuals come. So I think it's pretty good trading system. You know what I would like to see? Maybe you could send traders out. You know, like caravans, for instance. We've seen that in other games where you can, you know, try and trade for things that aren't necessarily in your own trading post. You know, they could take an extended period of time to get out there, you know, and back from far off locations. You know, you just might want to take the risk. You know, if I was in charge of this town and we were desperately in need of something, I'd probably put together a group of people and say, hey, go see if you can find it, you know, and give it a shot. But as it goes now, I really like the trading system. I think it's ingenuitive. You don't see it too much anywhere else. And it's nice as you make the trading center bigger, you get more traders coming in. So I think that's a very good feature to the game also. And lastly, in my pros is the soundtrack. I think the soundtrack is actually pretty good. I mean, it's nothing spectacular. It doesn't wow you, but to me, it's very appropriate for the period of the game. You know, it's not too obtrusive. You can hear it in the background. It's mostly violins, you know, and you have guitar, things like that. I think it's very soothing while you're playing the game, so I have to give them a thumbs up for that one. My neutrals, you know, things that are nice to have that you know, don't necessarily make me love the game more, but don't make me hate the game, because maybe there's a little bit of each. Is the crop system. I think the crop system is really nice. It's very cool that you can have three separate sets of crops you can grow, or you know, you can till the field and get rid of weeds and rocks. I think that's really nice. One of the things that's good is that it protects it from disease. You know, if you get like the wheat rot, that's rye, but if you get like wheat rot, things like that, I think your turnips can get some kind of disease. By the time it comes around again 2 seasons later, that disease is gone. So by growing different things every season, you can avoid a long-term disease. And also what I like about it is kind of a mention that I made for the arborist. You don't have to have the seeds. In other games, like we've done settlement survival here, you actually have to get the seeds. You have to find them somewhere. And to me, it's a little unrealistic. I mean, you're not starting out from like caveman times in that game, so you should be able to get the seeds. You should have, they should be known by that time. Here, that is the case. You have all these different crops you can grow. And to me, it makes more sense. I mean, you've got people wandering around the lands back then. You got people going from town to town. I mean, all they need is like a little sack and just some seeds in it. So seeds shouldn't be so difficult to get, and they're not here. That's what I like about it. But the reason I say it's a neutral is because it can get quite complicated if you start taking into like the fertility and the weed level and the rockiness and put it together with the soil mixture, and what each plant, needs is fertility important. Yeah, it can get to be too much. The way I've played it is I've just ignored all these things. To be perfectly honest, I personally think it's kind of a waste. I think it's a little too detailed because, the only thing I generally look at is if I mouse over it and I look at the frost tolerance and heat tolerance. It's the only thing I really look for, to make sure that if I'm growing it too early, it has good frost tolerance. If I'm growing it in the middle of summer, it's got good heat tolerance. And sometimes I don't even pay attention to that, to be perfectly honest, because to me, this isn't a farming game. So in my opinion, other than maybe, I think the fertility and the weed level kind of takes care of itself along with the rockiness, as long as you have the tilling being done. The fertility is provided by the compost yards. So to me, from here down, I would probably take everything out. I really would. To me, it just overly complicates things. But I call it as a neutral. I think it's a cool feature. I think it's cool that you can just grow everything from the beginning. But and I would suggest to you too that you just kind of avoid the complication. I think it just can be a little much. Another neutral is gravestones in the graveyards. I think, my game, for instance, Buzzsaw is 100 years old. When you get into 100 years, unless somebody's maintaining these graveyards, which I'm assuming they're not because it's not costing you gold, that these headstones will start deteriorating and you'd be able to reuse that area. Another, as I mentioned earlier, we did settlement survival here. That's one thing that happens there is eventually these these headstones start deteriorating and you can actually reuse that area again. And that kind of makes sense to me. Granted, it could be a little disrespectful because you're burying people in the same place that other people were buried. But I think that just, making graveyard after graveyard after graveyard after graveyard is a little bit overboard with me. Because, if you're trying to make the game as real as possible, if these are being maintained, then graveyards should be costing you gold, because you have to have people employed to maintain the graveyards, because technically they'd be all overrun, they'd have trees growing in them, etc., etc. So it seems to me that either you got to do one or the other. I don't think you can just leave a graveyard just sitting there forever and just that's it. Doesn't make much sense to me. Going on to the cons. The cons in the game to me is employment management. If you watched my couple series I had in this game, it drives me absolutely bonkers that I have to keep going into this and finding out that I have a miner missing and that I have 3 hunters missing, that they're dead, a glassmaker died. And it's really annoying when guards aren't there. You'll have an attack come and you're ready for it. And you all of your guard towers in the right place. And then they end up plowing through a gate or your double gates, and you look in this and you find out, oh, there's only one guard there, and there's only one guard in that tower. And that's because you didn't know, because you didn't go down here and you didn't click on that and you didn't find out that there's guards missing. It's just crazy annoying. You'll get compost I guess at that point it's not compost, but you'll get sewage starting to pop up all over your screen, and you'll be like, your town, you're like, what's going on? Something's going crazy. You got, a whole quarter of your city is just infested with rats, and you know, you'll wonder what the heck's going on, and you'll go down here and you'll check, oh, because 2 rat catchers are dead, or, you know, 4 guards are missing, and this really, really needs to be automated. If you've got to build, you know, if you've got to create another building that's like an employment center or something like that, then create entertainment, please do it. That is just crazy annoying. If I'm running a city this big, I can guarantee you I'm going to have people in charge of making sure that the people are being taken care of. You know, that the jobs are being done. And look, we're being raided. And I bet you they're coming from up here, as they have been. Let's see. Yep, they're coming from that way still. Where are they? Where are you guys? They make sure I don't believe them. I don't see them there. Where are you? Let me speed it up a little bit. Oh no, we are not paying that. You must be crazy. Anyway, what I will do is I'll pause this real quick, because obviously I don't want to get destroyed while we're doing our review of the game. So let me just run my guys over here real quick. It will take care of anything that needs to happen, and we'll go on from there. So actually, I'll slow this down so we can continue on. Yeah, employment management makes me nuts. There's no reason why I should have to keep going down here over and over. If I've got, for instance, this guard tower, let's choose a guard tower, that guard tower. If I've got it set to 2 people, there should be 2 people in that guard tower at all time. There's no way that this should be missing, and it's just that job never gets filled. It doesn't make any sense to me whatsoever. And that to me is one of the larger downfalls of the game, is that management. Also, you can't recover items for the raiders. This is a perfect example of what we're looking at right now. If I'm fighting all these raiders off, and they're going to take my tower out up there again. They always take that tower out. Well, maybe not. He's doing some pretty good damage this time. But what's crazy annoying is I've got these raiders laying here. Perfect example. Raiders laying there. They're dead. Dead raider, dead raider. Okay. That raider, let me back up a little bit. Sword right in his hand. Sword right in his hand. So why can't I recover those swords? He's got stuff in his backpack, so I'm assuming that he's got loot. I'm assuming they're carrying some kind of gold or something with them, right? So one of my big beefs is, why can't we recover things from the raiders? If you think about it, that would actually add like a whole nother component to the game, because you could basically build traps for him, you know, and to me that would be a very cool feature to have, is, you know, instead of just trying to fend off raiders all the time, you know. Oh, look at, they're coming from the south now. Look at that. I better get my guys down there. So instead of just repelling them, you know, because this is all you're doing over and over again, is just, oh, defending myself against the raiders, defending myself against the raiders, defending against the raiders. Well, why can't I get something from the raiders? I could build traps, you know, I could build towers down the sides here, bring them in and just wipe them out, you know. Then you could put a little more AI intelligence into the raiders and say, hey, you know, if this city's maybe too strong, maybe I don't want to attack it from this angle. Things like that, you know. So I don't know. I think not being able to recover things from the raiders is a lost opportunity. That's just my own thing. Another thing is the barns, and I've heard other people mention this too. You only have cows. I don't think, you know, to me, you shouldn't have to restrict it to just cows. Why? You know, like for here, the items you get from the cows, you know, you'll get tallow, you'll get milk, you'll get pelts, and you'll get meat. So with pork, you know, with pigs, you could do virtually the same thing. Maybe instead of you'd still get your tallow instead of milk. I don't know. You could come up with some, or just drop it. You know, if you had sheep, for instance, you know, with sheep, you could do this exact same layout, except for instead of milk, you could possibly have wool. You know, and it would be easy enough to add buildings that use wool. Um, if you had, you know, chickens, you could do the same thing, only replace milk with feathers. You know, feathers can make pillows, bedding, you know, beds for the houses to make things nicer. Um, you know, any number of things. It seems like you could expand this a lot more. I know some people have said something about horses. Horses actually seem like they'd be a bit more difficult because you'd want to be able to integrate them into your work. You know, you see all your people, it'd be a lot faster if they're on horses. That might be a little more complicated because if you think about it, you'd have to, in theory, you'd still have to build or feed those horses. You know, so I mean, a horse mechanic could be complicated, but I certainly don't see why you couldn't add more types of animals, because I really think that would be very advantageous. You'd have different types of food, maybe make people more happy, etc. The one overarching thing about the game that I think it really lacks at this point, and I know it's in early access, but is a goal. There's to me, there's really no goal in this game. I mean, what do I do? I play it till basically I get bored, you know, and to me the problem with that is when I'm closing this game, you know, when I'm done and I've had it, you know, for this city, you know, if I decide I'm not going to work with Buzzsaw anymore because it's gotten as big as I think it can get, or I'm just doing the same thing over and over again, I'm closing it. And when I'm closing it and I decide not to play Buzzsaw anymore, it's because I have a negative mindset. I'm bored. I don't think I can get any farther. I'm tired of playing to the game, you know, playing the game. And I think that overall with the game itself could be a killer. I mean, games like Civilization, you know, and I'll keep going back to that game. You can just play over and over and over and over and over again, and you have a goal. You know, when you launch your rocket to Alpha Centauri in Civilization, you win. You're like, when you're shutting off the game, then you're like, yes, you know, I kicked whatever's, you know what. You know, if you come away with an economic victory or a diplomatic victory, you're like, yes, I got it. You know, here, you don't really have that. You have the little bit of rating, you know, you get a little report, 127 killed. They did kill 12 of my villagers, but they were probably slackers anyways. Yeah, look at that. I still have 196 labors. But, you know, now I have to go back in here and I have to backfill all these. You know, they must have killed mostly laborers because I'm only missing like four people that were working. And the reason I have so many laborers is because my work camps have shut down because I've got 1,200 wood. But again, you know, what's my goal? You know, do you really want people to like always turn this game off because they're like, you know, I don't feel like playing anymore. I'm bored. You know, I mean, basically with this city, I really can't do anymore. I mean, if I wanted to, I guess I could like, you know, move all these arborists, knock out these walls, build more houses, or you know, I could leave the walls in there and build more houses. But I mean, when to me, when people play these kind of games, they have like a finite idea of what they want. So my, you know, like for example, me, this city's built. To me, it's done. You know, the only reason I would decide, oh, let me build some more houses out here and put another theater out here and build another marketplace is because I'm bored. Because my city's cool, I like it, it's like a perfect size, I can maintain it, I've got everybody up to really nice, you know, I got everybody up to manners except for like one house, but I'm bored, so I'm going to build some more outside my walls. I think that's a very bad precedent to set. I think somehow, some way, you know, before it becomes a full release, there's got to be a goal to this game. You've got to have a reason to play, you know, which you kind of do, beating the Raiders, things like that. But there's got to be something that when you leave this game at the end, when I decide I'm not going to play Buzzsaw anymore, it's because I won, because I did something. I can feel good about myself when I'm shutting off the game, because I think that'll make you want to play it again. You know, I don't know if all these villagers screaming when they're dying is going to want me to play the game again. But it's kind of a cool feature. But that's my opinion of what could really damage this game. I think it'd have a lot longer. I don't think that'll prevent people from playing it, but I think it'll prevent people from playing it over and over and over and over and over again, which is kind of what you want, because the more people play it, the more buzz you get. The more buzz you get, the more eyes you get on the game. The more eyes you get on the game, the more games you sell. So, I mean, that's obviously what you want to do. Looking forward, word is out that around mid-March, they're going to make some changes. They're going to release version 8.2. In version 8.2, one of the big things is going to be able to relocate graveyards. So you'll be able to move your graveyards depending on the size. It'll cost you gold. So the bigger the graveyard, the more gold it'll cost to move it. But for instance, here I had to do this little jiggy jig in the wall there. I had to do that because my graveyard was in the way. I would be able to move that. So I think that's a good feature. Doesn't, address what I was talking about earlier with possibly be able to reuse some of the area, but that's neither here nor there. At least you'll be able to move them. So I think that's a very good thing, because a lot of times in the beginning of the game, you either have to put your graveyard way out far away from everybody, or it ends up being right in the way. You'll see some people build towns and their graveyards like right here, right next to their city center, which their town center, which can be pretty annoying because this gives you added desirability within a radius. You want to be able to build houses that are not graveyards. It will allow you to 8.2 will allow you to relocate your town center. So that'll be nice. You'll be able to move this town center somewhere else. Don't know if you'll necessarily want to, because it does give you desirability within a certain radius. In this case, I probably would move it and put something else here that gives out desirability, because if you look at the radius, I'm using a lot of that radius on production buildings. I don't have homes up there, so but it's neither here nor there. I probably wouldn't move it in the long run. I'd probably just leave it where it's at, wherever I built it. That's what I've done in the past, and that's what I would probably do in the future if I played again. Arborist, a couple improvements there in 8.2 will be that you won't run into this situation. Not only are you going to be able to build or grow trees, you'll be able to plant them in 1x1, 2x2, or 3x3 squares, but the arborist will also auto replant, which will be nice. So like I said, you'll never run into a situation where you're out of trees. And last but not least, automated composting. So you can automate the compost yards. They will automatically apply whatever full compost they have to the field with the lowest fertility. I'm hoping there's no glitch where it won't apply compost to 100% fertile fields, which I've had to do a couple times in some of my other games, just because I really needed to empty the compost yard. Because if they start backing up, then they start not being able to collect. If they start not being able to collect, your people will get very upset. Like this one's almost full. If this was 100%, I'd still have to add it because I need to make room for more collecting. So that will be a very good improvement, is being able to is going to be automatic distribution of the compost. That will be excellent. Possibly in 8.3, they're talking about a few changes. Tier 4, yeah, I messed that up, didn't I? A tier 4 quarry. So I can be able to dig up stone, and it would be bottomless, they're talking about. But it will be tied to a location, so you won't be able to just, run out here in the middle of the field and dump a quarry right here. It'll be like it is now, where you have to have a feature, like up here in the mountains, you'll have like your iron. There will also be one for being able to build a bottomless tier 4 quarry, so that'll be cool. See, if I hadn't come over here, I wouldn't know that doesn't have a person. I have to go in here and, oh look, there's also a guard missing that I didn't know about. And what was that? A miner? I knew that, but a healer? Didn't know there was a healer missing. So, stuff like that just makes me crazy. Anyway, another thing, and possibly in 8.3, is a work camp tier 2 that will allow prioritizing planting. for your work camps, basically your forester. So that'll be a nice feature. Deep mines for all resources, which would need a resource mode or node, but it would also be bottomless. So, hey, you guys need to put that fire out. What are you doing? Let's speed it up and see if it burns down. No, I don't think so. So in other words, what it's saying is you'll still need the node, which we just talked about a moment ago. So if we go out to mountain, you'll have these nodes, but they'll have to be I don't know if it'll have to be a bottomless node. I assume it would be, because if you're looking at the nodes we have here and you click on them, it does show you how many are in it. So I would assume it would probably look different, or maybe this would just say unlimited or bottomless, but I would hope that the symbol would be different, so you don't have to click through 50 different symbols to see which one might be a bottomless. Maybe it'll be more of a situation like when we look at the like a salt pit, where it's more like an area kind of thing. That might be a little more the case, but we'll see. But that would be nice. And one of their points was, you won't have to worry about that resource. You can concentrate most on other things. But again, as I've been saying, without a goal, that just allows you to keep going and going and going and going until you're just bored and you don't care to play anymore. So bottomless is nice, but if you don't pair it in with some type of goal to make you happy at the end of the game, victorious, for instance, for example, I think the replayability of this is going to be once, twice, maybe 3 times, and then you're just going to go on to something else and never look back. And that's if you play it at all. So, you may just look at reviews like this and reviews by other people and just say, until it comes out at least and gets reviewed in full release, I'm not going to mess with it. But Crate Entertainment did say that they expect this to be early access probably throughout 2023. So hopefully there'll be some improvements. And I mean, they've made improvements. They really have. They've made improvements throughout their throughout their early access so far. So I think they're doing a good job. So hopefully, they'll keep tying things together. I hope, beyond hope, that they come out with some kind of process to automate this professions window. I mean, if they have to come up with another building, like an employment building or something that takes like 4 people to work in it, and they got to wander around and just check to make sure everybody's working, I'm good with that. That would be a good thing, even if it costs gold, to maintain the building, which it probably would, because, they'd be like employment managers and they're working or something like that. But I really think that's necessary, because it really does. It's not so bad if it's not something critical, but man, when you're missing like 4 guards, or, you're missing 2 rat catchers, you're missing 2 compost collectors, it's not a pretty thing, and it can really damage your city and get you behind the 8 ball pretty quick. So with that being said, I think I'd give the game probably give the game like a solid 7.5, 7.5, which is pretty good for an early access game. I think definitely has the potential to be an 8, maybe an 8.5. I don't know if I could go higher than that, and the only reason I say that is because I think to really get into the 9 range and above, you really have to have like other civilizations, at least have other cities out there, towns that you can go out to trade maybe. I think you need like a whole nother conquest component. If you put a goal in at the end, especially multiple different types of goals like you have in like the civilization and the humankind and things like that, then I think you're starting to get up into the 9, 9.5, 10, although I think the 10 is going to be very, very rare, but I mean, at least into the 9 area. That's why I'd say, this is a solid 7.5 for an early release. I think 8, definitely has a potential for an 8. Maybe even some of the improvements they make in 8.2 and 8.3 might make it, an easy 8. I don't think at 8.5, I understand the logic behind bottomless resources, bottomless mines, but I don't think it solves the problem with the lack of goals. It just makes it, it'll make it little less stressful to play, but I don't think it'll improve the feel of the play. All you're doing is making something that's marginally, very marginally annoying into something that's not annoying at all. But once you get those mines built, they just run. I haven't run out. I think maybe I had one sand pit run out so far, but that's it. You can really always find more resources. And I mean, if you're having to in my opinion, if you're having to ramp up the game to super hard difficulty, we have super few resources, to where bottomless would really help you, then I think you have a problem with the game itself. I don't think you should have to make a game so complicated, or so difficult, or go to God level or something like that to, to make it enjoyable. Because if you do, then I think there's, like I said, there's a problem with the game. When I've played when I've played Civilization, Humankind, games like that, I mean, I play them on like a middle level, sometimes even a little bit below, and I just like playing the game. They're enjoyable games to play. I have goals, I can win. You know, if even those games, if I had to put it up to deity mode just to enjoy myself, then there's something wrong with the game. There really is. I mean, that's my opinion. I don't see that here. I think the very solid core components are done really well. Um, and I think it's got great potential, but I think there has to be more. There really does. So, and that's basically my review for Farthest Frontier. Keep in mind it is version 8.1. As they come out with new releases, may do another review with the changes they have in 8.2 with the automatic composting and the more automated arborists. I don't know that it's necessarily it's going to be a prompt to do another review. I don't think that'll be enough of an improvement, but I will definitely keep an eye on this game. And if they come up with some major improvements, or they just make so many small releases, in 8.2, 8.3, 8.4, 8.5, and so many things change that this review seems to not be relevant anymore, I think I'll redo it. So the verdict is 7.5, solid 7.5 for the early access of Farthest Frontier. And, if you've got your own opinions, if you got your own suggestions, feel free to leave them in the comments. I'd like to hear them. I always like to hear feedback from what people think about the games. And I look forward to playing a lot more games in the future. So we're currently playing Kingdoms Reborn is one of our games of this type that we're making, or that we're reviewing. Well, I shouldn't say reviewing, that we're playing so far. And I probably won't review that one until I get at least 100 hours in that game. So we'll see. Thank you for joining me. If you enjoyed the video, please like it. Subscribe to the channel if you want to see some more reviews, if you want to see some more games of this type. Play quite a lot of them, and click that notification bell to be notified of our future videos. And thanks for watching.